other people in the Finger Lakes. We have a number of speakers who will give you some background on different aspects of this issue. And my name, by the way, Michael Warren Thomas. I do radio shows on gardening, food, and wine in the Finger Lakes. Covered the region for 20 years, and I've watched it grow, and it is exciting where it is right now. The potential for the Finger Lakes is incredible. And our first speaker, organizer with 1199 United Healthcare Workers, Ruthie Rueda.
Good afternoon. 1199 is the largest fast-growing healthcare union in the nation. We are 400,000 healthcare workers strong throughout New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C., and Florida. More than 22,000 of our members live and work in upstate New York. That includes Central New York, Western New York, Finger Lakes, and the Southern Tier in the North Country. Protecting the environment is for us the primary public health issue. As frontline healthcare workers, we are dedicated to saving lives, healing, and promoting wellness. Environmental health is a key link to achieving that goal. The fact that the Crestwood project threatens the water supply of 100,000 people in upstate New York prompt the 1199 SEIU Executive Committee to pass a resolution urging Governor Cuomo and the State Department of Environmental Conservation to deny permission for storage of liquid propane gas in the salt caverns directly next to Seneca Lake. That was more than a year ago. We are here today standing strong with the gas-free Seneca. The risk to the environment is far too great to allow the project to go forward. We urge Governor Cuomo to take into account the risk analysis and the science and the overwhelming opposition that all suggest that this is an ill-conceived plan that must be stopped.
Our next speaker is one of the preeminent winemakers in the Finger Lakes. Vinny Alaperti has been in the Finger Lakes since 2000 making wine, and has brought with him the very coveted Governor's Cup that Billsboro Winery won very recently.
Here she is. Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon. My wife, Kim, and I own Billsboro Winery in Geneva, New York on Seneca Lake. We source our grapes from Sawmill Creek Vineyards, which is located on the south end of Seneca Lake in Hector. From Tina Hazlitt and her family. There's six generations of grape growers on Seneca Lake. I'm proud to say that our hard work has given us the distinct honor of winning this year's Governor's Cup. Here she is. A competition between more than 400 wineries across New York State. The Finger Lakes have repeatedly won the Governor's Cup, and many have come from Seneca Lake. In fact, last year was another winery from the north end of Seneca Lake, just across from Billsboro. The wine industry is flourishing, and our vineyards continue to produce some of the finest wines, not only in the state, but in the country. And we are seeing our wines now on an international stage, and the future is quite bright. The governor has been a wonderful supporter of the industry. We appreciate his support, and we find it essential. We are confident that the governor will reject Crestwood's dangerous plan to store gas at the south end of Seneca Lake. We feel that it will endanger the lake, it'll harm tourism, and ultimately will threaten the wine and grape industry, which generates hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue annually. I'm proud to stand here today to urge Governor Cuomo to champion local New York businesses and not an out-of-state corporation that doesn't have our interest in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny. Steve Churchill, Seneca County Board of Supervisors member and a longtime supporter of this effort to stop gas storage on Seneca Lake.
Thank you. Today I represent a municipal coalition, which that map represents. It's comprised of 32 Finger Lakes towns, villages, cities, and counties. A coalition representing over 1.2 million citizens in the Finger Lake region. A coalition that stands opposed to the Crestwood proposal to store tens of millions of barrels of explosive propane on the shores of Seneca Lake. Seneca County, my county, is one of 7 Finger Lakes counties that have passed legislation requesting the DEC and Governor Cuomo to protect our region and the health and safety of all that live there. Over half of Seneca Lake, the largest of all the Finger Lakes, lies within the borders of Seneca County. The proposal to store propane in unlined abandoned salt caverns on the shores of Seneca Lake not only defies logic, but it threatens the drinking water of more than 100,000 people. Today, Seneca Lake is one of the most stressed lakes of the 11-lake region. Nutrient loading, runoff, high salinity plague the lake. In the mid-60s, propane was stored in some of these caverns that we're talking about, these unlined caverns. And it was a huge spike in the saline in the lake. It is still recovering. That spike was so large that today, the saline level exceeds both the EPA and the New York State Department of Health guidance for folks at risk for high sodium intake. Who are those folks? Well, it includes infants under the age of 1, people that have heart disease, high blood pressure, kidney disease. A lot of us shouldn't be drinking that water today. Hoosick Falls, Flint, Michigan, Standing Rock are all recent events that clearly demonstrate the imperative that exists to protect our life-sustaining water. The creation of 5 to 10 jobs, which this project proposes, the storage of explosive fuels in caverns never designed to store anything, a huge threat to the economy and livelihood of so many in our region. I ask Commissioner Sagos and Governor Cuomo that it is clear to us, or I say to them, that it's clear to us and so many more back home that Crestwood's proposal is a no-win proposition. Lakes, tourism, wineries, breweries, and agriculture, and a dirty, risky fossil fuel industry simply do not mix. We implore you today to reject this project and move to protect the Finger Lakes region, its residents, and the great state of New York. Thank you.
John Sosha is the owner of the Showboat Motel for 25 years.
The Showboat Motel sits on the shores of Seneca Lake, about 15 minutes north of Watkins Glen. We are the oldest continuing business on the shores of the Finger Lakes. We host visitors from around the world. We drink Seneca Lake water every day. Before I got here, I worked at 2 area colleges. I taught at 2 area colleges for a total of 38 years. I served as the town of Milo supervisor for 2 years, which encompasses Penn Yan and services Keuka and Seneca Lakes. I chair presently vice chair of the Republican Committee in Yates County. And in 2018, I will be the chair of our 14-county Finger Lakes Tourism Association, which is the oldest tourism association in the United States. In 2018, we will be celebrating our 100th birthday, and at the same time, we should receive our designation as a National Heritage Corridor. So that's a lot of exciting times coming up in the Finger Lakes, and we're real proud to live here. Since the 1980s, vineyards, wineries, farms, and tourism have become the leading industries in the Finger Lakes region. Total private sector employment upstate has skyrocketed in the past decade. Tourism in New York in the Finger Lakes supports over 59,000 jobs and generates $3 billion annually. This pales in comparison to the 5 jobs that Crestwood's project might create. We are positioned to continue growing, except for the looming threat of an industrial gas storage facility which is completely incompatible with the vibrant tourist economy we have spent generations building. My grandfather once told me that oil and water don't mix. Risking our growing tourism and water quality is unacceptable. This is not a decision to take lightly. From an economic and practical standpoint, that is a no-brainer. We never asked to be the gas storage hub of the Northeast United States. We and New York have nothing to gain from this plan, but much to lose.
And Justin Boyette is with us, the Hector Town Board and partner in Hector Wine Company, another preeminent winemaker in the Finger Lakes.
Thank you for coming today. As a local elected official and small business owner in the region, I understand the importance of partnering with a company you can trust. We simply can't trust Crestwood. They have lied about support for the project, claiming support from Monroe Vineyard, which turned out to be nothing more than a propane trucking business, and falsely claimed that support from Senator Gillibrand, who actually opposes this project. They've been fined twice by the United States Environmental Protection Agency in 6 years for violations of their accident prevention rules at its Bath Savona facility. They've over nearly a decade of toxic spills in or near Seneca Lake that the New York State DEC has fined them for a total of $57,000. Those toxic spills include chlorine, brine, and diesel fuel, and this company should not be trusted near such a valuable asset to New York State. All of the local businesses here, all the local business owners here today are held to the highest standards. Will our livelihoods be sacrificed for a Texas-based corporation that offers nothing to our regional economy and endangers our environment and Great Lake? Governor Cuomo, we are urging you today to make the right decision and reject Crestwood's plan once and for all. Thank you.
From Quick Solar Renewable Energy, owner Ryan Wallace.
I started my company with my wife in Florida, and we moved a solar company from the Sunshine State to New York. Why did we do that? We did it because we wanted to set up shop in the middle of the largest reserve of fresh water in the eastern United States, actually in the United States. This water is tremendous value, and it'll be invaluable in the future as fresh water becomes more scarce. Crestwood's plan is completely incompatible with Governor Cuomo's vision for New York State. The governor is committed to a growing the Finger Lakes and Southern Tier economy through clean and renewable energy, and the propane that they're proposing to store under Seneca Lake will not heat a single New York home. It is going to leave by pipeline to New England, the mid-Atlantic states. But even if it was going to stay in the state, there's already enough propane storage within 60 miles of Watkins Glen to heat all of New York homes that currently rely on propane. And that number's diminishing. In the past 2 years, I've moved 200 homeowners off of propane entirely to solar and heat pumps. And let me tell you, when my salespeople walk up to a house and there's a propane tank outside, they smile because they know it's going to be an easy sell. The payback is just too good replacing propane with heat pump and solar. Even if Crestwood's project did lower prices for propane, it would be short term. Remember the polar vortex? Propane shot through the roof. People were calling us left and right to get rid of their propane furnaces. Heat pumps powered by solar always have the same cost to operate, $0. The solar industry in New York has created 8,240 jobs. We're growing at 12 times the rate of the economy at large. The storage of gas under Seneca Lake is going to create 5 jobs. This isn't serious. This isn't a serious proposal. It shouldn't be taken seriously. We call on Governor Cuomo to reject this and protect upstate, protect thousands and thousands of jobs, and protect the environment. Thank you.
Several of the wineries that are represented here have solar. Perhaps somewhere in the range of a dozen have added solar in the last couple of years.
21
21.
in 2015 alone.
So the wine industry in particular is helping to lead the way in terms of renewable energy in the region and in the state. I'm going to read a statement from Paul Hobbs and Johannes Selbach. These are 2 winemakers who have collaborated now on a vineyard project just above Watkins Glen on Seneca Lake. They are 2 of the preeminent winemakers in the world. Paul Hobbs has wineries in California and in Argentina. Just scored 2 100-point wines with James Suckling and with Robert Parker. One of the very best in the world. And he teamed up with Johannes Selbach. His winery in the Mosel of Germany has been making wine since 1600. And so the expertise, the combination of these 2 is pretty amazing. And when we look at the future of the Finger Lakes, it's not a matter of we hope they'll come, we're asking them to come, we are planning for them to come. They've already invested. They've already planted vineyards, and Louis Barol, who's partnered with Justin Boyette for Forge Cellars, already producing wine that's being sold from the Finger Lakes in 40 countries right now. So this is from Paul Hobbs and Johannes Selbach. From the start, we saw the potential of New York's Finger Lakes as the best location in the Americas to develop a new Riesling project, bringing together the know-how and prestige from our wineries in Northern California, Argentina, and Germany. We extensively toured the Finger Lakes and fell in love with the soil and topography of an abandoned vineyard just above Watkins Glen, on the east side of Seneca Lake. There were no tax incentives offered to entice us to invest in the Finger Lakes. We were drawn by the opportunity to play a significant role in what we believe has the potential to become one of the most exciting wine regions in the world. We have plans for further development of our vineyards along with a multi-million-dollar visitor center, but we're holding off until the question of gas storage expansion is resolved. The Finger Lakes, and specifically the area near Watkins Glen, is unquestionably one of the premier places in the world for high-quality wine growing, grape growing. The countryside and lakes are gorgeous, the land is affordable, and the wines crafted by many excellent longtime producers are outstanding. Worldwide recognition of the Finger Lakes wines is growing fast with strong upward momentum. The jobs and tax revenue that will result from the expansion of the wine industry would dwarf the 3 to 5 jobs, several $100,000 promised by the LPG expansion. Crestwood's proposal is incapable of replacing the existing jobs and revenue generated by tourism and wine industry, and would jeopardize the 59,000 tourism jobs in the Finger Lakes. Gas storage on Seneca Lake would jeopardize a shocking $37.5 million in traveler spending in Schuyler County alone. Perhaps there would be more support for the proposal if Crestwood's propane would supply heating fuel for New York homes and businesses, but New Yorkers will receive zero benefit as all the propane stored at the facility will travel by pipeline to the supply terminal in Selkirk, New York, ultimately serving New England and the Mid-Atlantic states. Governor Cuomo must let the wine industry reach its full potential in the Finger Lakes. In order to preserve his environmental and economic legacies, he must soundly reject Crestwood's proposal in favor of New York's economy and industries. That's from Paul Hobbs and Johannes Selbach. Paul right now is in Argentina at his winery. Johannes Selbach is in Germany at his winery in the Mosel. Next, we have Joseph Campbell, Gas Free Seneca president and Finger Lakes resident.
Thank you, Michael. I just want to touch on a few points that Crestwood likes to make that we think are disingenuous at best. Crestwood tries to make the case that their plan to store millions of barrels of liquefied petroleum gas in salt caverns alongside Seneca Lake will somehow benefit the region. They call their recent project modifications, eliminating much of the above-ground infrastructure, quote, community-driven. saying that they listened to stakeholders' concerns. Instead, what this really proves is that we were right all along. The project's dirty, it's ugly, it's noisy, and it's incompatible with the character of the Finger Lakes brand and has no place here. The community has said a resounding no to Crestwood's plan to industrialize the heart of the Finger Lakes region and the heart of Finger Lakes wine country. We know that there's no benefit for us, a handful of jobs, 3 to 5 at best, and a minuscule amount of property tax revenue puts at risk a thriving agritourism economy that employs almost 60,000 local residents and generates $2.9 billion in economic activity. While Crestwood is fond of saying that the DEC has approved the project, DEC experts have approved the project, the chief administrative law judge continues to look closely at the very real issues with cavern integrity that PhD geologists with decades of experience outlined almost 2 years ago, February of 2015. The ALJ still hasn't ruled on the question of whether the acting associate state geologist that signed off on the project over 3 years ago was even qualified or authorized to do so. So let's face it, this is a last-ditch attempt by Crestwood to salvage any part of what was an ill-conceived project from the start. We've been closely monitoring the situation in North Dakota, where the indigenous peoples are trying to protect the sole source of their drinking water from a pipeline carrying dirty Bakken shale oil. And we applaud the Obama administration's refusal to grant the easement that would have put that water in jeopardy. So, we are calling on Governor Cuomo to protect Seneca Lake, the sole source of drinking water for 100,000 New Yorkers, by denying Crestwood permits to store LPG in unstable, unlined salt caverns that were never intended to store anything. To quote Crestwood executive Bill Gautreau, quote, "Certainly, if we were starting from scratch and saying, where would you build a liquefied petroleum gas storage facility? You probably wouldn't put it right there over Seneca Lake, near the wine country." Mr. Gautreau, we couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Next, we have Willow Lean, who is the Finger Lakes Wine Business Coalition Secretary and winery owner at Eagle Crest Vineyards, winemaker as well.
I'm the winemaker and the caretaker for a 144-year-old winery in the Finger Lakes. Among other things, when Pope Francis came to America, he chose to use Finger Lakes wine for his mass and for celebrations. And he chose our winery. Out of all the wineries in America, he chose the Finger Lakes. When we heard of the project beginning to circulate throughout the Finger Lakes to store LPG gas in the heart of wine country, we were all appalled, and the wine industry organized and created the Finger Lakes Wine Business Coalition, which is now a member organization comprised of Finger Lakes wineries, vineyards, independently owned and operated restaurants, bed and breakfasts, organic farms, wine industry vendors, and artists who consider ourselves the stewards of Finger Lakes wine country. This is a critical time for the Finger Lakes brand as the world discovers that we are one of the most exciting wine regions up and coming in the world, as winemakers from California, Germany, and France have started new projects in the Finger Lakes. If gas storage expansion plans are permitted in the heart of Finger Lakes wine country, developments, business developments and investments, and the growing stature of the Finger Lakes brand will be under siege. The local businesses in the area understand this. Just last week, over 500 businesses signed on to a letter laying out just a few of the many reasons they oppose this plan. We sent it to the Business Council of New York because they do not represent our interests. It does not create jobs, nor does it provide any local propane to New Yorkers. Over 450 Seneca Lake property owners, 500 businesses on the Gas-Free Seneca Business Coalition and Finger Lakes Wine Business Coalition, and 32 municipalities representing over 1 million upstate New Yorkers oppose Crestwood's proposal. So here's the bottom line. Finger Lakes is wine country. It's not gas country. And the plans of Crestwood to further industrialize the southwest shores of Seneca Lake present a real and present danger to the people of the Finger Lakes and the Finger Lakes way of life. So Governor Cuomo, what will your legacy be? Are you going to support a Texas-based dirty fossil fuel company, interlopers in the Finger Lakes way of life? Or will you heed the call of those who elected you, the business people, the families of the Finger Lakes, the owners and residents who have stewarded a way of life and nurtured it for over a century and a half, who today are the driving economic engine behind the Finger Lakes and upstate revitalization? The time, Governor, to deny this plan is now. We're all watching. Please continue to support our work and do the right and honorable thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Right now, there's an online poll for USA Today is doing for the best new restaurant in the United States. Over the last 18 months, new restaurants have opened all across the United States, and they're from, on that list of 20 you can vote online, are restaurants from Chicago, from New York City, from LA, from Portland, from Nashville, and one from Geneva, which happens to be #1 right now on this and has been for several days. The FLX Table, one of the newest restaurants in the Finger Lakes, has a decent chance of being listed maybe at the top or the top 5 best new restaurants in the United States. And that's just one more example of the acclaim the Finger Lakes is getting. We have some additional winery owners and people here, if the media would like to talk to them. John Engel is here from Heron Hill, founder of Heron Hill and on Cuca Lake. Also, Phil Davis from Damiani Wine Cellars is here, one of the founders of Damiani, and also Cindy Berlinski, who works at Weimer and is a lakefront owner, right in back of me. So thank you for attending today. We appreciate your time and look forward to your questions. Do you have any right now, or? All right. Well, thank you for attending, and we'll be here for any information you may need. Thank you.
I've been searching far and wide, searching for answers beyond the great divide. I've been looking deep within, looking to find what's always been inside of me, inside of me, inside of me. Lord knows I'm not getting any younger, I'm getting older every day. 30-some years gone by so fast, can't get the time to stay. This world keeps spinning faster and faster, and with all the separateness, with just one big disaster. Gotta come together, come together, come together right